250 yards has to be the most common answer given when people are asked how far the average golfer hits their driver. But is that the truth, or is it a load of lies? If you want to know a few more truths about the game, don't forget to hit subscribe. Let's have a look at how far your driver should be going. Thanks to our friends at ShotScope, they have given us some performance average data which takes the average shot and gets rid of some of the really bad shots that you hit to tell us how far you should actually be hitting the driver. Now, before we look at that data, I actually ran a poll here on my channel in the comments section, and I was quite surprised by the results. Take a look at these, and actually, what do you think about these? Let us know in the comments down below. But if we were to look at the performance average of the ShotScope user with their driver, we have some interesting numbers. Now, I'm going to say that the average golfer is a 15 handicapper. It's 18, but we're going to use 15 on this stat here. And we can see that for the performance average of a 15 handicap golfer, they are hitting their driver 236 yards. Now, when we actually look at age brackets, it gets a little bit different. We can see here that the 40-year-old golfer, their performance average is at 252 yards. It gets a little bit higher as we go down the ages, and not surprisingly, as we start to age, we see the numbers dropping off. But when we think of distance, is that how far you actually thought? As I said at the start, 250 is what most people would always answer. This is rollout, remember, as well. This isn't carry. But how are we actually going to increase our distance? How are we going to find a little bit more from the big stick? And also, is there something that we're overlooking? Now we know about the stats and how far the average golfer is hitting their driver, I'm going to give you 3 ways that we can increase the distance or your club head speed quite simply. And you don't need to spend hours in the gym here or become Bryson DeChambeau to do this. I think these are real simple and quite effective ways, ones that a lot of people overlook, because the main thing that people do when thinking that they're trying to swing the driver faster and hit the ball further is just use their arms. We see that they snatch it back and then throw the hands really quickly at the golf ball. That isn't how we're going to get the most out of the driver. And the first thing that I want you to do, we know now through ground pressures, using the ground effectively, we can generate more speed and more distance. So next time you're hitting your driver and you want to get a few more yards out of it, think of this. As you take your setup, what we want to do is, like I said earlier, not snatch back and throw the hands at it. We want to use the ground. So think of your trail hip and your trail leg and foot as one entity that you're really going to load into here. Don't think about anything else about your big turns. We're not going to slide, because that's not going to create loads of force into the ground on the trail side. What I want you to do as you take your backswing, just feel that you really shift down into this trail leg. Feel that that trail hip has gone a little bit freer and turned a bit more, and you'll feel like you're really loaded here, because then on the way down we can shift that pressure down into the lead side and then explode into the golf ball. So that's the first thing. Take your setup, and as you're about to hit, just think to yourself, you're going to load up into the trail side. I'd take that every single day. Just going to watch that because it could be a hole in one. No, it's gone over the green. Not a bad thing. The second thing is all about swinging the golf club. Sounds like a little bit of a novelty, but as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people try and generate distance by throwing their hands down at the golf ball. What we never let happen is the club head actually outrace the hands through into impact and then get past them in the follow through here. We see something where the hands are just dragging the club head the whole time and not actually releasing any of the energy down into impact. So simply all I want you to do is make some small swings where you're going back to parallel and just allow that club head to feel like it's just whipping by your hands here. You can see it starts behind them and it's starting to pass them. And what this will do as you build some bigger swings in this, will actually let that club head gain some energy in the way back and then release it down into the golf ball and through into the follow through, instead of dragging it through the golf swing. So simply think to yourself, as I'm going to swing this golf club now, all I want to do is actually do that, swing the golf club head, not my hands. That one is not bad at all. We're getting some distance here. And the third and final thing that we can do to generate a little bit more distance is peg the ball a little bit higher. We want to see that if we want to launch it a little bit higher and get a bit more distance, what we want to try and do is change our strike location. We don't want it in the bottom half of the driver, we want it more towards the top half. This is going to see that it comes out a little bit higher and it comes out with a little less spin, and it'll come off a little bit faster off the face as opposed to the ones that are on the low side of the driver. So if we combine all those things, we now know we need to shift into our trail side, we need to swing the club head, and we need to peg it a little bit higher. We're going to see that if you can get these three things going, you're going to get a little bit more distance out of your driver when you start to swing it. But what's that missing thing that I had mentioned earlier? Now, with all this talk of driver distance, one metric that we are forgetting is accuracy. Now, unless you are blasting your driver off the planet, then we may need to actually look at switching down to another club. But if you were to go to the 3-wood, which is a club that a lot of people would switch into if they are feeling a little bit nervous with the driver, the stats here provided by ShotScope actually suggest that you're not going to gain much benefit. You actually only see 1% more of accuracy and fairways found with the 3-wood versus the driver, and what we actually see is a big distance gap when using the driver versus the 3-wood. 214 yards the 3-wood only goes, so that gap between that and the driver, is it actually worth giving up that distance for just 1% more of fairways found? There's also the argument that some of the pros are actually getting mini drivers in as well now. Take Neil Shipley, for instance. He's got a 12-degree driver to try and help find a little more of the fairway out there. Tommy Fleetwood has the mini driver, something that he would use off the deck and off the tee. But for me, one thing that I would do if you are really struggling with driver and seeing that you're going down to the 3-wood more often than not, maybe just think about lofting the driver up. If you can get a little bit more loft on your driver through the changeable necks that we see nowadays, you're going to get the benefit of having the longer shaft to generate more club head speed. You're also going to get the benefit of having the slightly bigger head than the 3-wood, so a bigger surface area and more forgiveness. Adding in that little bit of loft is going to see a higher launch and a bit more backspin, and see hopefully a little bit more straightness. But it also comes down to actually just straightening the driver out a little bit. So now we know how far the driver should be going and how you can increase a little bit of distance. Firstly, were you shocked by those stats? And secondly, why not watch another video here where you can actually learn a little bit more on how to hit the driver straighter?